Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome back to another fine episode of Record Breakers. Another special guest episode of Record Breakers. Of course, here with me, as are always with me, are my regular quorum, which are none other than Brett.
Cheers.
Drew.
Cheers.
And Patrick.
Cheers.
And of course, we have our special guest that you already saw, but now get to hear, which is none other than streamer extraordinaire, one of our favorite people in the whole wide world, the one and only, the incomparable, the lovely and talented Brian Curley. How are you doing, Curley?
Hello. Oh, good. I'm not saying cheers.
Cheers. We are gathered.
We're going to be
talk
listening
about
to the
music.
song Black Velvet, is what it's going to be.
Yes. We are going to be talking about music once again, as we always do. And the provider of said music, as we are wont to do when we have a guest, is the guest, Curly. Curly, what album are you presenting us this week?
Well, I wanted to talk about the turmoil of picking an album for your show. I picked more of a super serious thing than what I could have done. Swagger is notorious for wanting me to pick the Rent soundtrack, which I think has to be done at some point. But I don't know. I went back and forth on this for a while, and one of my favorite artists of all time is Tim Kosher. He's in a bunch of different bands. The one that I picked is from Cursive, where he does lead vocals and writing and guitar and goddammit everything as well. But it's the album that came out I think 2 years ago. It's called I Am Gemini. Their most recent, I think, actually. But yeah,
Could be.
I'm pretty confident it is their most recent. It's 2012. Yeah,
It is. Checking Wikipedia now. It is. I'm not checking Wikipedia, but whatever.
It is.
Yeah. All right,
so
let's
this show is going to be a
around-
downer.
Yes.
welcome.
So let's go back around. I'll ask you first, Brett. What were your expectations coming into this album?
I had, again, no idea what I was getting myself into. I've never heard any of this music before, heard the band. I just remembered earlier when it was brought up to me again, there's like a screenplay that goes along with it, but I got this, the first 5 listens that I had were dry without it, so we're gonna see how that one works. But
We went in dry.
that's right.
Like Curly often isn't.
Oh, zings!
Oh, singer!
I didn't know I'd be signing up for zings.
Sings.
We need like a soundboard now.
Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, I had a little bit more than Brett. I knew what I was getting into. I had listened to myself, some of the Tim Kosher and some of Cursive, especially. I got in more of the Greta Kahn era, I believe it was. The big old upright bass player and all that. That was the era I sort of knew of them. I sort of fell off after that, but I knew the sound of the band. I kind of knew what I was getting into. I knew there would be a lot of symbolism in the lyrics. I knew there would be a lot of distortion in the guitar, and I knew there would be a lot of to feels. So, kind of knew I was getting in there at the get-go. So,
yeah. Pat, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I'm halfway in between those two. Cursive was a band friends had mentioned, but not one that I had ever listened to. But I listened to a lot of music of this style from this era.
Les Settle Creek.
Yeah, just from like the late 90s, early 2000s sort of emo, post-hardcore, whatever sort of scene you would call that. That's sort of my wheelhouse of what I listened to in high school. And I've probably heard a Cursive song or two prior to this, but never like they were not one of the bands I was downloading on Napster back in the day.
No. Yeah, now to ask you, Brian, what would be the themes and elements that you would say are the key to this album?
Well, so one of the main reasons I picked this one out of all the other, more serious albums that I could have picked is that I love the meta deconstruction of the album itself almost as much as I love the music in general. And Tim Kosher, either with Cursive or with his own solo projects or The Good Life, tends to have a lot more. I don't know. I don't want to say more. Like he's the same guy who was in the 90s doing the emo stuff and is still making music. And a lot of other bands that I've seen that are, have lasted a decade or 2 decades or what have you, something like Weezer will get stuck trying to recreate whatever music that they had that garnered like their community or whatever at that time period. And they never either one recapture it or they don't grow at all. And Tim Kosher's one who's, Cursive's been making albums for over a decade, and they've always been this weird meta of still doing that old lost art form of making a narrative in an album that has to be listened to in order and it tells a story versus just being, a couple hits and then some fillers, which is a lot of what you see in mainstream music. I don't know, I guess always. So I love this a lot because of all of this is Cursive shtick, right? You talk about it having the liner notes is a fucking playbill, where you get stage direction, character names, sides, information about what's going on this quote unquote stage. But then you can also listen to each of the individual songs, and for what it's worth, they're good songs that are fantastic. He's always done this with the Cursive albums, or not always, but a lot of the albums are all a narrative that goes from track 1 to track 12 or whatever, and they tell a story, and there's characters, and I love it. I absolutely love it to death. The themes in this one, what's great about Kosher is that, as I said, he's grown. He's gone from some of his first early albums were a lot about, him and his first experience, like divorcing. There's an album called Domestica, which is a lot about. It's not him specifically. It's not his story. It's a fictional thing, but it has all the beats to that. But he's now in his 40s. I think he's getting to his 40s. And this album that came out 2 years ago is all just deeply wrought with like what is life? Like what are we? As we get older, what does it mean to either be good or bad? What does it mean to have fucked up as a child or as a 20 something person, and then later in life decide that you're a different type of person? What does that mean? What is? He's always struggled with religion as well. He grew up completely forced Catholic kind of stuff, and then fought against that for a long time. And so there's a lot of struggling with salvation in this album for someone. So those are the real opening themes. But in addition to just the themes of the music, which is that, there's just all the meta stuff in regards to. I love albums that have a narrative.
Yeah, it's definitely a strong narrative. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask Brett, what were the themes and elements that stood out for you? What was your impression?
Yeah, I'm interested to hear Brett's stuff because you said you didn't read the liner stuff.
No, and
started listening to
I'm
songs.
Notoriously a guy who avoids following lyrics. I tend to follow what's behind the lyrics more. That's what stands out to me. And with this, there was a lot that stood out. There was a good mix throughout the album of different style influences and tempo. There's a lot of depth, a lot of ups and downs, and it's not like forced. It's not just like, it does sort of change towards the last quarter of the album, but it's not like a harsh. These were some songs we've had in a pile for waiting for an album. Other than that, there was some really, really good mixing, good work with layering, especially when you use as much effects as they do. And in the way that they do it, and not just a straight up like I'm playing along with a melody. They were doing some ambient noise, using some crazy square wave fuzz. It almost sounded like a speaker was blown there for a little while, and doing it in a percussive manner. There were a lot of little things that I pulled out on my way through this album that really I never heard anybody do before.
So what I loved about this specifically Tim Kosher and Cursive and whatnot, they're known for having what people describe as like schizophrenic tracks and sounds and stuff. It'll just do crazy like two different guitars, almost like attacking each other. They'll do a lot of rhythm changes mid song, and I always kind of liken it to some of the just the like if you ever listen to like a lot of stuff from like mid years of Radiohead, like Amnesiac and stuff, or Idiotech, where they do a lot of just noise at different parts, but it's meant, you're supposed to feel off your rocker. You're supposed to feel uneasy when you hear those things. It's not just like accidentally, let's just hit the guitars, or make a bunch of noises. They do it on purpose. And I liken it a lot to, like, if you ever read like poetry where you'll get, you'll get this is supposed to be 2 lines that rhyme or whatever, and then you'll have people that break them, like the rules, obviously and on purpose, so that you remember that word or that line that happens at that point. You're supposed to feel emotionally weird for some reason, and that's what he does with a lot of them. There's mainly, specifically, I wanted to bring up this there's one track called I think it's Double Dead, where he's kind of losing his mind and falling back into his old ways, or he's trying to dealing with what's going on, and they go from like randomly, he goes into like an offbeat drum track to it, and it's like there goes from being like 3 beats to 4, and it adds it in, but it's while he's like stumbling, like the character is stumbling, which you don't actually know, like, necessarily, unless you're reading it along with it. And I love it because you really are, like, you're put off, or you're like I'm enjoying the rhythm of the song, and then now you're not, and it's because the character's stumbling. And just those little subtle things I love so much about this work.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that's there. Drew, what would be the themes and elements that stood out for you? What caught your attention?
Like Curly said, a lot of what's cool about this band, and a lot of the emo of this era in general, is that within songs they will be able to tell you a story. But Cursive always told they always played like the long con as far as the album goes. They always told the big story. And the music with the lyrics, because Brett always focuses on the music. I'm kind of a lyric guy, as Curly very much knows. But the music very much pushed the lyrics in very cool directions. Like Curly was saying, there's moments of dissonance. There's moments that are off-putting in the music, and the lyrics push that forward. I listened to it twice without, the first like 1 or 2 times I listened to it was without the playbill, without the script, and I listened to it twice again with the script. And I feel like the script definitely added something to it, but I think that it stood out on its own too. You could definitely tell the big symbolic points of the story. The literary allusions still worked. The play of the characters, in my opinion, still worked, because there was a sort of cadence in the word choices that they used that sort of pushed the angel and your main protagonist, like the word choices pushed that for me. Overall, the album was really, really tight. There was, I looked it up and now I forget. I think it's Matt Bayless. Let me look this up. Matt Bayless.
Yeah.
Yep. Brett's right. Matt Bayless, the producer of this album, the mixing was great. When you get a lot of distortion and a lot of like that sort of pushed sound, you need a good producer like that to really push it forward and really tighten it up. And I think that really, really worked well for it. The spiritual story, the self-doubts and self-loathing, and the overall story of this Gemini sort of feel to it was really, really sort of cool. And I really, really dug the ideas that he was going after with this one.
Pat, what were your impressions? What were the things that stood out for you?
This album's really ambitious. Like he wasn't just gonna make a sort of, it leaned more towards a rock opera than a straight concept album, because there is sort of this.
It teeters on the concept album stuff.
It's like concept album, rock opera, and if we've learned anything about rock operas in the last.
Half of Quadrophenia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was ambitious, and in a lot of ways, I think it succeeds. The music's pretty solid. It's a style I'm familiar with, but they also venture into other sort of areas. There's a lot of really, really odd sounding stuff where there was one Lullaby for No Name where there was strings that were weirdly run through effects, and it kind of like they tried to make everything sound really creepy and kept you off balance as the story, changed and as, things happened. And the ambition of it was kind of impressive to me, because I listen to a lot of bands from this era, and they're in one of two states. They either quit somewhere in between now and then, or they made a whole bunch of records that were fairly underwhelming. And this is kind of like if I'm paralleling it to other bands from this era, this is fucking trying. I mean, it's trying really hard to do something unique and interesting, and I think it kind of does that. So
what do you think about? Well, what do you think about Kosher doing all the voices? And he does this in all of his long form albums.
Part of me wishes there was a second vocalist, because I think it would be easier to separate needing a playbill to tell the story. I think multiple vocalists would help, but I understand, like, my guess is, and this is not an insult to him, this is, I suspect he's a very obsessive sort of guy in terms of his creation, and it's his baby, and because of that, he gets to make what he wants, and I think he succeeds with it, but I think it would do him some good to get a counter voice to bounce off of for this sort of what you really need. I mean, they had a couple of girls take some tiny parts. If you had a second person playing the brother character, I think you could do more with it. But I think he also did a pretty good job of having moments where you can kind of tell vocally who is doing the talking.
Yeah,
so
it did. It was funny because I without knowing the story, because I haven't read the bill yet. I never got around to do it.
I put it in the link.
I know, but I saw it and I looked at it and I was like, okay, that's a cool thing. And then I completely forgot.
I tried to express as hard as I could to Drew. I'm like, no, dude, you have to have them all have this PDF. Just give them this PDF.
I know. I gave it. I have it. I have it. It's on my computer. It's on my computer. I'm just lazy.
It's on their website. The whole thing on their website.
But I will say this, it was an interesting experience, even without knowing kind of the exact details of the story. And I joked about the half of Quadrophenia, but I did even get the idea of the competing personalities and the competing dual forces. And I actually got the idea of it being like in the same person, but I guess from the vocals. But that was very interesting thematically. But let's get into kind of some of the key songs. You already touched on one of them, Curly. But what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, like, so when you're talking about key tracks with an album that's supposed to be listened to from start to finish, I tried to pick ones that, thanks. Looking at the dog. There's more. The ones I picked were the ones that if you're going to go to someone and they were like, no matter what, I'm only going to listen to one track. Show me the track. Like stuff that you could give them that would kind of be compartmentalized, which is hard to do because you don't really know what the hell's going on. But for the Sun and the Moon is kind of, I think that's actually their single for this when they put out on the radio and whatnot, and it's one of the ones that they play in concert. Mainly because it kind of touches on the main theme of the comparison between the two, brothers, the Sun and the Moon, which I don't know. Do we spoil in this show?
Sure,
Spoil.
Okay, well,
we use the film sack rule. We plan on people having heard the album before they come in. If they haven't, it's their loss.
Okay, so I mean, and I could be wrong, but my interpretation of the album is, it's this man dealing with his own self, right?
Yeah.
It's not an actual brother.
Like I said,
just make sure everyone's on that page.
Like,
because if you go, I mean,
schizophrenic, yeah.
Oh, super schizophrenic. I mean, which is again, I love it so much.
Dissociative personality disorder for the science.
It's shown in the music because the music is the same way, right? Like you get oh, it's beautiful. Sun and the Moon does that. There's the way why they're arguing, quote unquote, with each other and dealing with their issues with like his idea of he did bad shit as a kid. It's not, I don't think he's ever actually gone into what those demons are. Could have been he murdered someone or got someone killed or whatever, but he did something bad in his youth, and now he's an older man, and his way of dealing with being reborn in the religious way or just in general like a new man who's good and finds good in the world was to forget his youth, that part of him, right? And it's a lot of like going back to his hometown and being like confronted with those demons head on and be like, yeah, that's just who you were, like. And it's like someone that like an alcoholic like worrying about relapsing, and they have these like how do you fight that? How do you fight yourself? How do you you'd always want to assume, I mean, that the ideal is you you take all the worst parts of yourself and the good parts, and you end up with something that's the final product. But a lot of people can't do that. They have to shove and hide and close off all those parts of them that they can't control, that are bad, per se. And it's him struggling with that. And I think he kind of comes to the benefit, or not to the benefit, but he kind of comes to the conclusion of it's necessary to accept the parts of you that did do bad things. You can't just say I'm good now. I never did those bad things. You have to accept that the things that you did in your life have amalgamated into the person you are. Son of the Moon does that for me. It kind of gives you, if you were going to tell anyone to listen to one track of this album, it would be this one.
Yeah.
And I like it.
Yeah.
The other ones I picked, Double Dead, because I talked about how I love the music in that one. It's just so. It's just so uncomfortable to listen to it, and it's supposed to be, I did a Birthday Bash, which is one of the last few tracks in it, because I've never been more afraid while listening to a song.
I can agree with you on that. Yep.
The maniacal laughter that Tim Kasher does as he's doing the voice of the quote unquote other twin, while he's talking about this, because one of the earlier songs is like the house is alive, and then later the song is the house is a lie. Like I think I don't know if I've interpreted it myself or I've read other people that said it, but like the idea of this house, this childhood house, is just a metaphor for his mind, his own head. And so the idea of the bad brother or whatever just saying fuck it, I'm gonna blow this fucking thing, or not the bad brother, the good brother, him, the main guy, blowing the house up. And you have this juxtaposition where you have the quote unquote bad brother, the bad side of him, being insane at the beginning, being like fuck you, let's drink, let's destroy this stuff, and then he ties him up and he runs rampant in his life, as he's quote unquote relapsing. And then later you have the quote unquote good guy getting free, while the bad guy has kind of had the revelation that we need to work together, our two bad sides, our good and bad sides. And then the good side is like, fuck it, let's just destroy it all, and like you have him like, he's like, we're back here in this house again. The only difference now is that they've got these big red sticks, and he's laying dynamite around, basically like cartoonishly laughing at the sky maniacally while placing dynamite around his house, which is his mind, screaming light it up. And the sheer terror on the bad brother's face, or not, this is in my head, but God, I've never been more terrified. I remember I was like sitting there with goosebumps when I listened to this the first time. Or actually, anytime, really. So I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have any opinions
some of
on
the
that
key
stuff.
tracks, yeah. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you, or key moments, key chapters in the story for you?
Well, I'm going to come at it from, a less deep fashion. The tracks that really stood out to me, that had the song structure. Warmer, Warmer, it was very nice, very percussive. It had a hook that reeled you in. It was also another, there was not a set, formula they were going with. It didn't just follow, the easy chord progression where you come back. There's a lot of hanging before they resolve. Drunken Birds, that's the one that I heard the tone that sounded like, it almost sounded like if you have too much of we'll get a little electronics here. When you have a fuzz pedal, it's actually making a square wave out of your tone, and if you do that too much, it makes a sound that sounds like a speaker blowing up. And normally that is not very fun to hear. But with this, they must have sweetened it somehow, and like it's obviously not. It's not in volume. It's just in the tone, and they use it pretty well. It's also got a very good hook, and like Pat was saying earlier, the Lullaby for No Name. I was thinking that I was listening to like a section of Hemispheres or Cygnus X1 volume whatever. Like I was waiting for like Geddy Lee to pop out and there to be like 18 cymbal crashes. But
I think it's supposed to be like purgatory, right? Or like afterlife almost in some of that last bit, where it's like you're almost stepped back from the story and you're in an area with the narrator almost. And so like I think you're supposed to get that like just weird like disconnection with everything.
Can we talk about how like they got this album made? Like, that is something that like it should be noteworthy. That like this album got made. If I went to somebody and be like, "Here, I've got all of this, press it, send it out," like, no, they'd tell me no.
I mean,
It's
that's why I out of all of them that I thought about, I was like, I'm gonna pick this one because it's two ways for a lot of people. It's either what the fuck is this, or what genius am I fucking holding right now? Like, I love it.
Yeah.
Right.
Drew, well, I have to ask you, what were some of the key tracks for you or key chapters in store for you?
Well, I'm gonna do. Apparently, Brett didn't do the Record Breakers thing, so I'm gonna do the Record Breakers thing of starting out with the first track, "The House Alive." It does the ebb and flow, in my opinion, with the music perfectly with the story of that sort of confusion, that unease. He's waking up in his house and he's like sort of confused at what's happening. And it slows down and it drops off, and there's this quiet point right before the angels and demons sort of come into the scene, and they come in with a burst. The music hits, and you're there. Like, they're there, they come to the scene, you see them, it's that whole bit.
Like, do you not feel like you're running with them at that point, right? Like, you're running through this giant house with pillars and shit, and there's, fucking goddamn.
Right.
Sorry, I'm 2 glasses of whiskey in, and I'm now having a good time with it.
It's the 2 glasses of whiskey, I loved him sort of thing. We were warned that this was coming in the pre-show.
4 glasses of whiskey, and I'm just gonna be tearing up, but like, you guys don't even know.
But
seriously.
So there's that. I've also Warmer leading into the next one, the next track that people have talked about. That driving, the questioning, that beat and the way the music plays, you can see in your mind, you can see the 2 subjects circling around each other, almost questioning each other,
I get
pointing at each other.
Like lurking in the attic, kind of like this like golem like just shadowy figure, and it's just taunting him, you know? And
right,
it's like,
you're staring it down, and it's weird. The end of Act 1, Gemini, is great. The crescendo in the music up until this point, up until Gemini reaches an absolute fever pitch. There's the staccato uneasiness of the music. It's that grasping of straws. You can feel it in the music. He's trying for something. He's looking for himself. And the scream at the end is the drop-off point into Act 2, which begins with Twin Dragon Hello Skeleton. And that is, for you, it was later on. It was the birthday cake. This was the creepy part of the album for me. It's that it feels like a 3-ring circus that what is it? Cassius is in the middle of, and almost like a 3-ring circus, or like a surgery theater, like an operation theater of this like dismantling of what Cassius was, and like doing what you will and stuff like that. That led, I think, really well into Act 2. Yeah. That would be weird.
I sat there at the start of a Cursive show, I mean, a couple months ago, and I was sitting there with fans, and I'd met this girl that was there. She was in the front, like, because we pushed to get to the front, and we started talking about this stuff, and this was billed as the, as a I Am Gemini tour, and I was like, how the fuck is he going to do any of these songs live on a stage? Like, I don't get it. It's going to be the weirdest thing ever, and he made it work.
Right, yeah. and that's the cool part, is that as the story goes on and you see sort of the rebirth of Cassius away from like that Pollock sort of feel, you really get that. You get that story, and you get the half redemption and the apprehension at, okay, well, what do I do next, sort of thing. And I think that's really, really a cool spot to be at. Telling that story, how Cursive as a band and Tim as a lyricist weave that story, I think is really, really cool. The music is tight throughout all the songs, so it works.
Mm-hmm. Pat, what would be some of the key tracks or key moments for you?
On the scary songs, the ones Cat and Mouse, the Cat and the Mouse was Creepsville, USA. For me, it's such a like twisted sort of, I'm going to kill you kind of song that you can't help but notice just how uncomfortably creepy it is. And it's probably the most rock opera song on the record. Like, it is total I don't know what Tim Kasher listens to, but I feel like he was listening to The Who. Like he wanted his own rock opera. Like, but he wanted to do it on his terms, and like that one I really liked for that. The Sun and the Moon is really cool. I think that kind of sets the stage in a lot of ways, and you kind of get an idea of the two sides to the character, or the two characters, however you personally interpret it. And I think because of that, the way it kind of separates the two sides really works for it, and it's cool musically too. There was a lot of little tiny changes musically where they would explore little things, like sort of as Drew mentioned with was it Twin Dragon Hello Skeleton, where it gets kind of carnival-y and carnival things are creepy, and it sort of worked on that way. And there's a lot of those like little moments, and Birthday Bash, the one that kind of closes it out before it ends, is really, really good. It builds and falls really nicely, like how it sort of builds up and then it kind of drops and then it builds back up, and then it just, cacophony at the end, which is kind of, I think, them making something blow up musically, I guess.
So no one brought up the I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but I want to get opinions on the discussion with the twins at the carnival. Like, just general feelings. Like,
it was like the
ending I felt was so strong. So for me, just like, how did you feel after? And Tim does this on stage, right? He does this song on stage. Like,
you keep going back.
But I mean,
he does in fact have a band that he plays with. Yes.
The ending of that song with wow, like from Pollock, like it's just so, I don't know, it breaks me. Like I sit there, like I could pause the track there and sit for probably an hour, like, and just reflect on I mean, what it means to be a human. Curly's drunk.
No, I see what you're saying, where it's sort of, in a way, it's him looking at how he views himself being sort of two separate people, but permanently stuck together, and without one, you don't have the other, without the other, you don't have the one. It's sort of it's in a way, it's looking in a mirror and seeing what the way he actually sees himself.
Yeah.
If you take the brothers are the same person sort of thing, but also just that they're connected.
Go back around the horn. You were kind of going on a good point there. Pat, what would be your thoughts on the album overall? Kind of conclusions.
I enjoyed it more than I did. Like, the first time I listened to it, I was like, okay, this is kind of a concept record, kind of a rock opera. I'm not sure what I'm getting into, but musically there's, nothing to complain about. It's solid. The second or third time through, I sat down with the notes and just went straight through it. And that, like, seeing the story that was trying to be told, really, I think you appreciate just how far they were taking this and how much of a story they were trying to tell, and kind of gives you an idea of just kind of how crazy the whole idea is, but it works. The story, has sort of a beginning and a middle and an end, which I know sounds stupid, but bands don't tell good stories a lot of the time. That's sort of the problem. And you could probably, with minimal effort, turn this into a full stage production, and it would probably be pretty good.
Yeah.
And that, like, honestly, I kind of want to see that, like, put the band in the back, let Tim take one of the brother characters or somehow, and just like freaking stage production this. It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Drew, what would be your thoughts on the album overall?
One, I'm gonna agree with that it could very easily be flipped into a stage production like that. Me and Curly see eye to eye a lot on a lot of music. And this is evident here, I think, as I gushed over the concept of the whole thing. The album as a whole works as a whole. I think there are songs that can stand alone, but it's one of those records, like me and the Mars Volta, that I really will try to get people to, if they're going to listen to it, start from beginning to end, or you're really gonna get lost in the middle.
Don't go on Spotify and hit the top voted songs. Just go and listen to the damn actual album because it's a
Right.
fucking album.
Right, exactly. And that to me is great. The music is tight. They play with a lot of stuff. You could tell they probably had some fun in the studio experimenting with different sounds and different things here and there. I think it was a really well done piece. If you want to go for a musical journey, go ahead and do that. I think it works with the playbill. I think it works without the playbill. I think it's just a fantastic album. If you're ready to ride that wave, I would suggest it.
Yeah. Brett, what would be your conclusions about the album overall?
Well, I didn't get it in its with the right aperitif and digestif with the playbill and the following along, and I'm very much a like I said, I don't follow themes, I don't follow lyrics too well unless they're like in my face, and then I normally don't like it because they're in my face. But no, I have nothing bad to say about this album. It was something that somebody actually had planned out. It's not like, there are some albums that are like collections of singles that are just loosely thrown together, scattershot, thrown out there. This is not one of them. Somebody knew exactly where they wanted to start, where they wanted to peak, and where they wanted to drop it off. And they did it. With all the kind of precursors to this that were done in the depths of hallucinogenics in the 70s that I dig, I can't blame this album for anything. Like I tell everyone, the album may not be made for you, but it was made for a reason. And go listen to it and see what you think.
Yeah, it was a good story that was told over a whole album, but it had nice, good, definite chapters. I think that with the songs, it didn't kind of globulate. It didn't globulate into one mesh of nothingness. It actually had chapters and a pacing, which was really cool. Curly, what would be your thoughts overall? Your final thoughts on the album?
So I wanted to, I guess I would close out with more of a discussion of the meta. I think I've talked enough about the actual album itself. If you want to crawl down the hole that is this, Tim Kosher, Cursive, even The Good Life is a little bit lighthearted compared to, I just called Good Life lighthearted, compared to Cursive stuff. But all of his albums are like this. I mean, not all of his albums, but all the Cursive albums are pretty much like this. They have a narrative. They don't have this playbill like this, but they have a narrative that definitely leads you to multiple listens and discovery as you go through it a bunch of different times, and you keep finding new bits and new stuff that was purposely put there, and it's fantastic. I just say go enjoy.
Yes.
I'm in love with it.
Go enjoy.
Go enjoy. If we titled our
That
podcast,
sounds like
that would
a Japanese product if there ever was one.
be
Oh, you guys were supposed to listen to that new album, Go Enjoy.
That's right.
When it comes to
that's
foreign
next week.
language albums, I usually mess up. So I listen
gonna be
to
fun.
Stop, Be Sad About
Yeah,
It. So.
you went the same way I was about to go. I love you, Drew.
Which is going to be fun for when we talk about my album next week. So we look forward to that. But those are our thoughts on the album. Yeah, go check it out. It is a nice album to kind of just sit down and enjoy, and maybe play Rogue Legacy while you're listening to it.
I mean, so if this is ever you, my way of listening to this album was got it in the mail and then laid on my floor with the book open and played it loudly, like too much to my roommate's chagrin as she walked by and was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Shut your mouth. We're doing an album right now." So if that's the way you listen to music, you might really, really enjoy this. But otherwise, as the other people here have said, it's got other things to enjoy, which I really loved hearing your guys' opinions of.
You can still
This is
just
kind of
play
really
Rogue
fun.
Legacy and enjoy listening to an album while you're doing it.
Civilization 5 is my go-to if I'm going to play something that I can listen to an album and not have to think too much. So
Yes,
that
exactly.
is a soundtrack.
All right, so
Forza
those are our
5.
thoughts on the album. We're going to go to our main event of the evening, as I always like to say, to our haiku reviews, what everybody's been waiting for. We have our haikus. So let's go around the horn. Let me see who's going to go first. Drew, what is your haiku?
story-driven romp through a catcher's disturbed visions of his freaky play.
Brett, what is your haiku?
Great use of effects with some heavy-handed drums. Best guest album yet.
Aw.
You should see what the competition was first. But
It was what was it? The Moody Blues and the Fugees. So
And garbage.
call out
and garbage. And garbage.
Are you guys
And
shitting on your
Dream
previous guests?
Yeah, but you know what? They're going to be our future guests again, too. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Patrick, what is your haiku?
Ambitious album. Works better than expected. Weird, but kind of good.
I thought
my-
Patrick's was gonna. I thought Patrick's was gonna end with "Sad this isn't Rent."
It works.
Damn it, Curly. Damn it.
I have my haiku. The first line, it could be, if you want to take out the if or bring it in, depending on how you how you consider the last word. But half of Quadrophenia explores some neat ideas and has a good pace. Or you can say half Quadrophenia if you really want to be iffy.
Quadrophenia.
Yeah.
If you want to count syllables.
Extra.
Yes. Of course, last but not least, Curly. Brian Curley, what is your haiku?
I wrote this sober, so it's not good. I love this album. Great songs with a narrative. I Am Gemini.
Yes. Beautiful thing. Those were our thoughts on this album. You can find this album on our Spotify playlist if you're playing along at home. You can find it there. Just if you have another place that you would like for us to curate a playlist,
Let us know. Let us know. We will go there and do the work. Just holler at us.
Just holla. Like a TTS, holla.
Holla at your boys.
Holla at your boys. On that playlist, I don't think will be the next album, but it will be. The next album will be mine album. Just because I don't think it's on Spotify. But my album will be the next album, and my album is none other than Lim Kim's Goodbye 20 that I have here that I'm showing the camera. Lim Kim's Goodbye 20. Going back to Asia is now with Drew we alternate
Hello
away
10.
in.
Yeah, Drew. Hello 10. That's the album you're going for.
With Drew we jump back and away from ska, and with me we
Everybody.
jump back and away from Asia. So that's gonna be the thing. But that's it. You can find us all over the internet. First of all, you can find Curly at
Hello.
Drug Kids Gaming on Twitch.
You say drug kids game?
That's what it sounded like.
Jesus Christ.
Can I be a guest on that?
Terms of service. Terms of service.
Drunk Kids Gaming.
That's more my
all I've had
sister's
is a
show.
Coke Zero.
Wow! Dropping
Wow.
that mic on your
If anyone wants to
sister.
put up a picture of a bus, I can throw her under it right now.
Yes. Whee! I can throw my sketch
hey,
of-
thank you for showing up. Thanks for coming on. Hey, this has been a
For
blast.
sure.
Yes,
This
of
has
course.
been really fun.
Of course,
We'll
you can
have to
find
have
him.
you on again.
Yes,
Because I love you.
we will
Yeah,
do
sorry,
that.
I do the internet gamings on the Twitch network. Twitch.tv/drunkkidsgaming, dkgtv.com. Also the YouTubes, occasionally the Twitters and whatnot. But you can find it. I'm
I
out there.
haven't done a YouTube video in like a year.
I put episode 1 of the Yog up.
Yes.
Okay. Episode 2 is in the bank.
Yes.
I gotta just put it up.
Yes. All right. But of course, you can find us all over the internet. Patrick is at the Swagger. Brett is at Hibbity Bibbert, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at X
It's-
for X. I'm
Is
at
Swagger's
PD
face
Rave.
always covered by the microphone entirely?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
that
his
is my
shtick.
that is
Yes.
my gimmick.
That's
That's a
his
bit,
gimmick.
The bet.
Okay.
That's his gimmick. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com, RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com, Rebelli.net for all the other shows, iTunes, Stitcher. Follow, share, subscribe. I'm not going to say you should like, subscribe, because that's taken by Felicia Day.
You can stumble upon us. You can LinkedIn us.
Yes, LinkedIn us.
Yes.
Oh my god.
You can dig us Give us digs.
Find us on
Aw.
Upvote us on Reddit, because apparently that's how we get all our views. Jesus.
Yes.
Reddit's the best place.
Let me grab my weed whacker.
Shout out to our baby metal. Shout out to our baby metal. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Doodaloo.